Let's talk about the anchoring effect. Anchoring is a cognitive bias that can have a significant impact on the decisions we make. To illustrate the point, consider the experiment performed by psychologists and professors Dr. Fritz Strack and Dr. Thomas Musweiler in 1997. In an effort to see how the anchoring effect could influence guesses, Drs. Strack and Musweiler polled 60 college students. They divided them into two groups. They posed the following questions to Group 1. Did Mahatma Gandhi die before or after the age of 9? How old was Mahatma Gandhi when he died? They asked Group 2, did Mahatma Gandhi die before or after the age of 140? How old was Mahatma Gandhi when he died? Both answers are clearly wrong. However, the numbers 9 and 140 anchored the group's guesses. The participants in Group 1, who were given the lower anchor, guessed on average that Mahatma Gandhi died at age 50, while those in Group 2, who were presented with the higher anchor, guessed on average that Gandhi died at age 67, a whopping 34% difference. In an earlier study on the anchoring effect, psychologists and professors Dr. Daniel Kahneman and Dr. Amos Tversky asked people to spin a wheel built to land on 10 or 65, making 10 and 65 the potential anchors. Then, they asked the participants to guess what percent of the countries in the United Nations were from Africa. Participants who landed on 10 had an average guess of 25%, while those who landed on 65 had an average guess of 45%, almost twice as high as the group who landed on the lower anchor. Decades of research confirms that people tend to be overwhelmingly influenced by an initial piece of information when making a decision, even if that piece of information is a random number unrelated to the decision being made. There are a couple of explanations that may explain the phenomenon. One theory is that people naturally start at the anchor point and then adjust upwards or downward incrementally until they arrive at a guess that seems reasonable. For example, when asked if Gandhi died at an age younger or older than 9, participants likely dismissed that age as too young and worked upwards from there, while those who began with the age of 140 likely estimated that number was beyond reason and worked downward from there. Hence, those given the lower anchor guessed, on average, a lower number than those given the higher anchor. A second explanation has to do with the way our brains think. Nobel Prize winner Dr. Kahneman published a bestseller in 2011 called Thinking Fast and Slow. The book compares two systems of thinking. System 1 thinking is quick, emotional, stereotypical, and unconscious. Consider how this might have played out when guessing the age at which Gandhi passed. Participants whose anchor was 140 may have been instinctively influenced by the thought that Gandhi likely died at an old age, which, at the time of his death, might have been around 67. While participants whose anchor was 9 may have been jarred by the number and jumped to the conclusion that Gandhi may have met an early demise, causing their average guess to be lower than the other groups. System 2 thinking is slow, conscious, and methodical. With System 2 processing, participants given the anchor of 140 may have attempted to employ logic and reason. Knowing that no one had ever lived to the age of 140, they quickly ruled that out, but then considered additional information. Had they heard that Gandhi died at a young age like Tutankhamun? Participants engaging System 2 thinking likely took more time to arrive at an educated guess. However, they too were influenced by the anchor they were given. So you might be thinking, how does this play out in a negotiation? The anchoring effect refers to the human tendency to be unduly influenced by a piece of information. Therefore, when negotiating, the person who makes the first offer will anchor the starting point for further negotiation and will, in effect, establish what is fair and acceptable. Reasonable counteroffers will likely involve incremental adjustments downward from the anchor. Watch how anchoring enters into an everyday negotiation. This is Marina Duran. She signs her name Rena D and prefers to just be called D. Although she's relatively unknown, she has trained under some of the world's most recognized contemporary artists and was recently named a rising star. Dee is elated when one of her mentors invites her to show her work at a famous gallery. Having only been paid for large wall murals in the past, Dee isn't sure how to price her painting. Her mentor advises her to set her price high, as the final price could impact the perceived value of future works. So, Dee prices her painting at 270 gold pieces. This is Gerald. Gerald is in search of a one-of-a-kind piece of art for his new office. Gerald spots the perfect painting hanging in a nearby gallery. He notices a price of 270 gold pieces. A sign indicates that the artist will be at the gallery the following night. Gerald prepares to negotiate. Based on what you've learned, how do you think Gerald's response will be affected by Dee's price? Answer: if Gerald believes that the price is somewhat fair, he will likely make an offer slightly under the stated price of 270 gold pieces. If Dee didn't put a price on the painting, how might that impact Gerald's offer? What effect could that have on the final sales price? In this video, we'll talk about 3 terms every negotiator should know: BATNA, reservation point, and target. BATNA stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. The term was introduced by Harvard professors Roger Fisher and William Ury in the book Getting to Yes, Negotiating Without Giving In, published in 1981. The authors were pioneers in the fields of international law and negotiations. BATNA answers the question, what would you do if you were unable to reach an agreement during a negotiation? In other words, are there acceptable alternatives if the negotiation doesn't work out? Alternatives are the options a negotiator can consider in lieu of reaching an initial agreement with the other party. BATNA represents the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. A BATNA indicates how much a party depends on the success of the negotiation. The better one's options, the stronger their BATNA. Parties who are less dependent on an agreement have a strong BATNA, while parties who are more dependent on an agreement have a weak BATNA. When one side has a stronger BATNA than the other, that side has more power in the negotiation, making it likely that more of their interests will be met. According to authors Fisher and Ury, your BATNA is the only standard which can protect you both from accepting terms that are too unfavorable and from rejecting terms it would be in your interest to accept. Here's an example to illustrate the concept. Company X is a global company that installs elevators and escalators in businesses, residential buildings, airports, and stadiums. The company has a patent on a unique system designed to control the power consumed by an escalator during non-peak times. It's the preferred escalator for stadiums and other event-based venues. Company Y is a regional elevator company that wants to expand their business by entering the escalator market. They're interested in purchasing the technology from Company X or licensing it for use. In this scenario, who likely has the stronger BATNA, Company X or Company Y? Based on what we know, we can assume that Company X has the stronger BATNA and is in a better position to negotiate. But what if the scenario were different? What if the patent for the control system was about to expire? This would create an opportunity for other companies to compete and produce similar systems, flooding the market with imitations. How would this affect the BATNAs of Company X and Company Y? Increased competition may weaken the BATNA for Company X and could drive prices down. It's important to determine your BATNA before you begin your negotiation. To determine your BATNA, you will want to consider as many options as possible, allow time to negotiate, and be prepared to walk away. Once you've determined your own BATNA, take time to consider the BATNA of the other side. Ask, what are their alternatives? What do they stand to lose if they don't reach an agreement with you? What can they gain if they do? If your BATNA is strong and the other side's is weak, you should be in a great position to negotiate. Even if your BATNA is weak, it might not matter. If the other side has a compelling and urgent need and limited alternatives, you can almost certainly reach an agreement that will satisfy both sides. This brings us to the second term, reservation point. The reservation point is the negotiator's bottom line. the point at which the BATNA is a better option than the offer at hand. If the terms of the negotiation are not equal to or better than the reservation point, the negotiator should walk away. To set a reservation point, you'll need to anticipate possible outcomes of the negotiation and then select the minimum to which you'd agree. And finally, let's talk about the target. The target is the highest expected outcome or best-case scenario from the negotiator's perspective. Your target should be based on the anticipated strength or weakness of the other party's BATNA. Setting higher targets generally leads to higher outcomes, but a target that's too high might result in a deadlock and lengthen or end the negotiation. This can be risky and can damage relationships between negotiating parties. To be clear, your reservation point is not your target. There should be a significant difference between your target and your reservation point to allow room for negotiation. When entering a negotiation, you should not reveal your reservation point or your target. If you do, the other side will know how far they can push you. And finally, you must be prepared to walk away at your reservation point. Let's see how the three terms play a role in an everyday negotiation. Dee is a young artist whose popularity is on the rise. Recent interviews have created a buzz in the art world, making her a bit of a social media star. When a mentor invites Dee to show one of her paintings at a respected gallery, she jumps at the chance. He advises her to be thoughtful when pricing her work, as the sale price will almost certainly affect the perceived value of her work in the future. Together, they arrive at a list price of 270 gold pieces. Dee's mentor explains that buyers in the art world like to negotiate. He encourages her to determine her BATNA and set a target price based on the potential weakness of the buyer's BATNA. He also suggests that she call the owner of the gallery to find out who might be on the guest list for the art show the following night. The gallery owner mentions that a local businessman named Gerald had admired her painting. Gerald said that it was the perfect size and color for his space in the exclusive office building across the street. He also said that he wanted something impressive for the company's upcoming grand opening. Dee wants to make a deal, but she also knows her value, and she certainly doesn't want to set the wrong precedent. She considers her alternatives to a negotiated agreement. If the negotiation doesn't meet her requirements, she could just walk away and find another interested buyer. Dee has little information about Gerald, but knows that her piece is the perfect fit for his space. With her BATNA and long-term goals in mind, Dee sets her reservation point at 240 gold pieces, and her target at 265 gold pieces. Meanwhile, Gerald is determining his own BATNA. He reaches out to his sources in search of suitable alternatives. The art dealer tells him that extremely large paintings aren't typically found in nearby galleries, and that the uncommon color palette will make finding the right artwork a bit like looking for a needle in a haystack. Gerald also knows that if he were to find something comparable, he'd have to add shipping to the total price, and it's unlikely the painting would arrive in time. Gerald considers his options. He could leave the wall blank, but that wouldn't have the impact he's looking for. Or he could keep looking and try to find another painting to fill the space. Based on what you've learned, who do you think has the better BATNA? Storytelling in business has long been considered an essential communication skill. An elevator story is a concise and persuasive introduction to your business proposal. An elevator story is important because it summarizes the customer's needs and communicates the most important aspects of your product or service which fill their needs in less than 60 seconds. If you plan to control the direction of the negotiation and influence the outcome, you must be prepared to open with a compelling statement. A well-crafted elevator story can set the tone for the negotiation by describing the situation, problem, and proposed solution while establishing the anchor. SPAR is a simple structure that you can use to plan a focused and impactful elevator story. First, describe the situation by briefly outlining the societal burden associated with the current state. Next, describe the problem as you see it. The problem is specific to the customer or account. Then, introduce the action by aligning your solutions with the other side's needs or problems. And finally, establish the best path to resolution. This is where you set your anchor. The owner of a lawn treatment service might open a negotiation with a homeowner like this. According to the local weather service, 80% of the state is experiencing a drought which is expected to continue for several more months. Without the right amount of water and nutrients, grass begins to turn brown and die. This makes lawns particularly vulnerable to hordes of insects and pernicious weeds. As you can see, your lawn is already being affected. My name is Steve. I'm the owner of Grassroots Lawn Care, and I have a PhD in horticulture. Our proprietary fertilization formula and application service reduces grass browning by 85% and lawn death by 95%. Today, I'm offering a free lawn evaluation and the complete summer service for less than $2 a day, which represents a 10% discount off our monthly rate. In this example, the anchor is a free lawn evaluation and discount off the standard monthly rate. Just as a dropped anchor controls the movement of a boat within a certain distance, in a negotiation, an anchor establishes a range of play for subsequent offers. First impressions are made in less than 10 seconds, so every second counts. When opening a negotiation, you'll want to quickly get to the point and present the essential information. Once you've crafted your elevator story, practice delivering it until you can deliver it with confidence. Your elevator story positions you as the solution and sets the tone for constructive dialogue, so make it count. Now, watch as a negotiator plans an elevator story. Dee is a soon-to-be famous artist who will be showing her work at a local gallery. Gerald is a potential buyer in need of a large painting for his new office. Dee follows the framework for building an elevator story that will begin the conversation with Gerald, and practices it on the way to the gallery where she will show her work and meet the potential buyer.
Hello, I'm Rena D. In the world of social media, where art can be a commodity, it's great that prestigious galleries like this one are creating space for in-demand artists with unique and coveted pieces. I understand that you've been searching for a one-of-a-kind piece for your amazing new office. I can assure you that there are no other paintings in the world quite like this one. And from what I've heard, it is the only one for your space. These larger pieces take so long to create that I only paint one a year. We can deliver and install it in your space tonight for just 270 gold pieces.
How will Dee's elevator story influence the negotiation? How do you think Gerald will respond? According to authors and professors William Ury, Jean Brett, and Stephen Goldberg, a cognitive frame is the subjective mechanism through which people evaluate and make sense out of situations, leading them to pursue or avoid subsequent actions. Simply said, how you frame or discuss an offer during a negotiation can impact how the other side views the offer and subsequently affect the outcome of the negotiation. The gain-loss frame refers to the way in which parties define the risk or reward associated with particular outcomes. A gain frame focuses on the benefits of the outcome, while a loss frame focuses on the risk of not acting, the potential loss or the costs. The prospect theory, developed by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, shows that the probability of a loss has a greater impact on an individual than the equal amount of gain. In other words, most of us are more motivated to avoid a loss than we are to capitalize on a gain. During a negotiation, you will, of course, speak to the benefits associated with an outcome. You can do that using gain terms like grow, expand, improve, increase, achieve, and advantage. But if you genuinely want to inspire action from the other side, you will want to frame the discussions in loss terms. Loss terms include risk, threat, vulnerable, problems, challenges, impact, consequences, cost, exposure, and death, just to name a few. Loss terms promote a sense of urgency and responsiveness, so speak to what the other side stands to lose by not acting. Here's an example. Steve is the owner of Grassroots Lawn Care. He's negotiating with a homeowner in the midst of a drought. Note his use of loss and gain terms. We'll highlight loss terms in red. According to the local weather service, 80% of the state is experiencing a drought which is expected to continue for several more months. Without the right amount of water and nutrients, grass begins to turn brown and die. This makes lawns particularly vulnerable to hordes of insects and pernicious weeds. As you can see, your lawn is already being impacted. Our proprietary fertilization formula and application service reduces grass browning by 85% and lawn death by 95%. Today, I'm offering a free lawn evaluation and the complete summer service for less than $2 a day, which represents a 10% discount off our monthly rate. What effect do you think the loss terms opening would have on the homeowner? How would Steve's opening impact the homeowner differently if phrased this way? According to the local weather service, only 20% of the state has received enough rain this year. I'm Steve, the owner of Grassroots Lawn Care. I have a PhD in horticulture. By utilizing our service, you'll increase grass greening by 85% and enhance lawn survival by 95%. This service costs you $700 a year. As you think about how to frame your own offers, consider this. You can further strengthen the loss frame by aggregating the risk and segregating the cost. Wow, those are big words. In business, the term aggregate means to put components together to arrive at a collective amount or sum. When you aggregate the risk, you bring it to the highest level. For example, talking about the number of people who die in the world each day has a greater impact than the number of people who die in a given city each week. In contrast, the term segregate means to separate or break apart. When you segregate the cost, you bring it to the lowest reasonable level. For example, you might discuss the cost per day for one person instead of cost per year for all people with the condition. Let's return to Steve from Grassroots Lawn Care. Steve begins by aggregating the risk, explaining how the problem will worsen over time. According to the local weather service, 80% of the state is experiencing a drought, which is expected to continue for several more months. Without the right amount of water and nutrients, grass begins to turn brown and die. This makes lawn particularly vulnerable to hordes of insects and pernicious weeds. As you can see, your lawn is already being impacted. He ends his opening by segregating the cost. Today, I'm offering a free lawn evaluation and the complete summer service for less than $2 a day, which represents a 10% discount off our monthly rate. Steve makes a compelling case. For only $2 per day, the homeowner can avoid having to replace his entire lawn and save thousands. When planning to negotiate, remember to frame your offer in loss terms if you want to drive behavior change. Frame utilizing gain language if you want to support the current situation or process. Look for opportunities to aggregate risk and segregate cost. Listen in as an artist plans to frame a negotiation. Dee is about to show her work at a local gallery. Gerald is a potential buyer in need of a large painting for his office. Dee recently discovered that he is actually the leasing agent for the building across from the art gallery. Dee was told that Gerald expressed an interest in her painting. She's been preparing to introduce herself to him using an elevator story. Dee's mentor is a successful artist and has been helping her in her career. He steps into the elevator. Both are on their way to the gallery.
Hi, Dee. Are you excited about the show?
Excited and a bit nervous. I've been practicing my elevator story, but I'm not sure that it's strong enough. Maybe you can help?
Let's hear what you have so far.
Of course. Hi, I'm Rena D. In the world of social media, where art can be a commodity, it's great that prestigious galleries are creating space for in-demand artists with unique and coveted pieces. I understand that you've been searching for a one-of-a-kind piece for your amazing new office. I can assure you that there are no other paintings in the world quite like this one. And from what I've heard, it's the only one for your space. These larger pieces take so long to create that I only paint one a year. We can deliver it and install it in your space tonight for just 270 gold pieces.
That's a good start. Now, we just need to frame the offer so it'll be better received by your potential buyer.
How do I do that?
Studies show that you can inspire action by framing an offer in loss terms.
I can do that.
Furthermore, you can strengthen the loss frame by aggregating the risk and segregating the cost.
Okay, I've got it. Hi, Gerald. It's nice to meet you. I'm Rena D., but my friends call me Dee. I read about your upcoming grand opening. As beautiful as the building is, leasing in this market must be difficult. I imagine you take a significant loss each day the offices remain unleased. The challenge comes in making the offices stand out from others in the area. There are so many. My painting will make the impression you're looking for, and it's the only one in the world. We can have it delivered and installed in your space in less than 2 hours, just in time for the grand opening, and all for less than 3/4 of a gold piece per day, including delivery and framing.
How did framing strengthen Dee's offer? In traditional negotiating, individuals bring their positions to the table and then go back and forth until they reach an agreement that they are both satisfied with, or until one of them decides to walk away rather than breach their reservation point. A well-known parable illustrates the concept. There are two chefs in a kitchen. Both are making recipes that require the use of oranges. Both need another orange, but there is only one orange left. Each chef takes a position in an attempt to win over the other side. Eventually, they reach an impasse. So, one chef cuts the orange in half. Now, each chef has half of an orange, which is less than either of them need to complete their recipes. One chef squeezes the juice to make his special sauce, but there isn't enough juice and the sauce doesn't turn out very well. The other chef grinds the rind to add to the icing for her cake, but again there isn't enough. The cake tastes like plain vanilla, not like her famous orange vanilla. Both chefs are disappointed. Interest-based negotiating is different. The practice operates under the premise that all parties involved in a negotiation have interests, and that those interests can be acknowledged, protected, and advanced. Interests are the underlying needs, desires, and motivations that explain why someone takes a certain position. Interests may be economic, or may include the need for security, recognition, control, or inclusion. In a negotiation, it's important to consider your interests and the interests of the other side. Both chefs wanted the remaining orange. One chef needed it for the juice. The other needed it for the rind. Had they known that up front, they might have taken different positions at the start of the negotiation and could have walked away with a different outcome that would have benefited both parties. When planning for a negotiation, you will want to identify negotiable interests. Your offers should include interests beyond the contentious, such as storytelling interests. Storytelling interests align with your goals. Contentious interests dramatically affect the financial outcome of the negotiation for both parties. Once you've identified the interests, you can develop multiple interest offers that align to the needs of both parties. According to research by Professors Adam D. Galinsky and Jeffrey Leonardelli, presenting more than one offer at a time increases the other side's satisfaction as well as the odds that an agreement will be implemented. While not an established rule, it's generally accepted by researchers that a negotiator should present no more than 3 multiple interest offers at a time and should be prepared to concede storytelling interests to gain concessions on contentious interests. If the customer asks for a concession that you can't make, you want to be prepared to offer an acceptable substitution concession. When offering a concession, frame it in the positive. Use language such as, "If we were to give X, we'd ask you to do Y." By offering multiple options and leaving room to concede, you demonstrate flexibility and a willingness to cooperate. This allows you to strengthen your relationship with the customer while obtaining the desired outcome. Watch as Rena D. prepares to negotiate. Rena D. is a soon-to-be famous artist who is showing her work at a local gallery. Gerald is a potential buyer in need of a large painting of a certain size and color to hang in his new office. Time is running out for Gerald because his open house is only a few days away. Dee's piece fits his criteria, is available, and he wouldn't have to pay for shipping. The night before the show, Dee thought about her interests. She also considered Gerald's interests and used that information to develop 3 multiple interest offers. She followed a 3-step process. First, she named each of the offers to align with Gerald's needs. Because Gerald needs the painting quickly, she named the first option Carry Out, the second option Next Day Delivery, and the third option Full Service. Next, she listed the negotiable interests: availability, delivery and installation, framing, artist appearance, discount, and payment terms. She included both storytelling interests and contentious interests and listed the economic interests at the bottom of the chart. Finally, she aligned the negotiable interest options to create multiple interest offers. Varying the options across the 3 offers and checking to ensure that they are equivalent. Here are the options that Dee developed. Option 1 is Carry Out. This option allows Gerald to take the painting immediately, get a 5% discount off the list price, and benefit from payment terms, 50% down and 50% in 30 days. Option 2 is Next Day Delivery. With this option, Gerald takes possession of the painting the following day. Framing, delivery, and installation are included. Gerald pays cash and gets a 10% discount off the list price. Option 3 is Full Service. With this option, Gerald spends slightly more than with the previous 2 options. The option includes framing and same-day delivery and installation. Options 2 and 3 also include a 30-minute on-site appearance by Dee. Satisfied that the options addressed the interests of both sides, Dee decided to get some rest before the show the following night. The next day, Dee encounters Gerald on the way to the gallery. She introduces herself and shares her elevator story. Dee and Gerald continue to the gallery. They walk through the door and make their way to the painting. Dee discusses the multiple interest offers with Gerald. Gerald tells Dee that he'll agree to the full service option if Dee can give him a better price. He asks for a 10% discount. Dee says that she can't offer a better discount because she's already including same-day delivery and installation. Instead, she offers to include a more expensive one-of-a-kind frame, extend her on-site appearance at the open house to an hour, and sign autographs for Gerald's guests. What happens next? Dee and Gerald were able to reach a successful agreement because Dee employed a negotiation strategy which addressed multiple interest options, contained multiple offers, and was flexible. Both sides of this negotiation are satisfied with the outcome and have a positive view of the other party.